Hey everybody, this is Vanessa here today. Just for a few minutes though, because then we are going to have a guest presenter, as I mentioned. Just go on and let me know that you can hear me and see me okay. Thanks, Stuart. Good to go. All right, excellent. Thanks, guys. So we have a cold day out there today. Everyone who's come into our office has said how chilly it is. So I think fall is actually here. Which is good because it's basically Thanksgiving. Which is kind of scary. I just want to go on and remind you guys, let's see, of a few things before I hand the mic over to Justin, our beloved graduate assistant, who is going to talk to you guys about physical activity today. For those of you who have been in the program for a while, you know that about every 9 or 10 weeks or so, we'll usually have our GAs talk about physical activity and exercise. Since, you know, we're dietitians, we talk about food. We want to make sure we get the experts to talk about exercise, all right? So that's what we'll be doing today. I do want to welcome a couple of people who are joining us either for the first time ever, or maybe it's been a little bit since they've been online. But if you are new this week, or if it's been a little bit since you've been online, I just want to make sure that you're doing all right with the program. Let's see, I think Rana, maybe Catherine. Have you guys received, you should have gotten an email with some information, as well as a big manila envelope with some additional information. Yes, excellent, from Catherine, awesome. And that email that we sent you also had a link to a presentation that told you a little bit more about our program. So if you haven't been able to watch that presentation yet, I'd recommend that you do so. It answers a lot of questions about the development of the program, as well as some of the services that we do deliver. So try to make some time, carve some time out of your schedule to look at that. And you did receive the mailings as well. Let's see, Rana, Catherine. Yes, great, excellent, good, glad to hear it. So if this is your first time attending online, we do keep you muted, as well as encourage you to keep your cameras off. It just gives you the chance to eat some lunch. We know that this is the lunch hour, or maybe multitask if you've got some other things going on. So yeah, everyone is figuring everything out, right, Rana? And that is completely okay. All right, but just know that you will have some privacy while you do so, and you'll just be looking at us, and we will not be looking at you. If you'd like to communicate with us, then you are going to want to use the chat box to do so. You do have the opportunity to use a private function in that chat box if you feel like you just want to ask a question and don't want the class to know. But I will say that everyone kind of learns from each other in this environment. So I would urge you to just use sort of the general function for chat, okay? But in the spirit of that, I'm going to ask you some questions and just sort of see if you have any specific questions about the program or about today. If you're excited about physical activity, learning a little bit more about that. Does anyone have any needs that they feel need to be met right now? We do record all of the online meetings, so if you ever feel like you missed something, or if you want to go back and hear it again, you'll be able to access that on our YouTube channel. The link to those online recordings are always going to be on our Blogger site, as well as, and links to that Blogger site are in the weekly email that we send out. That weekly email does go straight to you. It's usually either on like late Monday. The latest it'll go out is early Tuesday, but that's unusual. So if you don't receive those emails, do let us know, and that way we can make sure that we have the right communication channels open for you guys, okay? I do want to also mention, I don't know if we have it with us. Do we have the tea? Oh. Okay, Karen's gonna grab, we had a fun food. So for the new people, every other week we will bring what we call a fun food to our in-person classes, which, by the way, you are always welcome to drop in on. Just let us know so we'll know to look for you. But we bring a fun food to these classes, and it's just sort of a quote-unquote dietitian-approved, new-to-us product that we think is interesting, okay? And we usually do have actual food, but this week we had tea, and we did not have a proper tea service, sadly, but we were able to offer tea bags for people to take home. And the reason why we chose these is this is a line of what they're calling dessert delights. So it's dessert teas from Tazo, which I think is a pretty well-known brand, right? And Karen is a dessert tea aficionado. I'm going to tell you right now, if I travel anywhere, I try to bring her some dessert teas because I know she likes them. So now there's a whole line. So now I'm going to figure out what else to bring her. So we have 3 here. We've got a glazed lemon loaf, vanilla bean macaron, and butterscotch blondie. And we like these because sometimes you just want that flavor of dessert, but you don't really necessarily want dessert. And this is also a way to have a little water, right? We all need to drink a little more water. So has anyone tried either this line or a dessert tea in general? Sometimes you'll find them, like I said, randomly in your travels. Sometimes you'll see them in loose tea format. Sometimes like Celestial Seasonings will do a holiday chocolate peppermint flavor or something like that, but you've not heard of them, Linda. Okay, Stuart, you have them at home. Look at that, you're ahead of the curve. Do they have caffeine in them? Let me see. So some of them, so this butterscotch blondie, that is black tea, and it does contain caffeine. They have a handy caffeine guide on the sides of, I know it's really small. They have a caffeine guide on the sides of the box. So you would be able to see where your caffeine lies. So this is the guide. This is the legend. And then on the front of the box, it tells you it has 2 dots. So this would be 16 to 30 milligrams of caffeine per 8-ounce cup. The other ones are, the vanilla bean also has the 2 dots. And the glazed lemon loaf is caffeine-free. So I guess it sort of depends on the flavor, okay? So yeah, but that's a good question. I know I can't have caffeine after like noon. So if that interests you, Tazo is there for you, okay? Any other questions about the dessert teas? Did you get these at Target, Karen?
Yes.
She got them at Target. Oh.
I saw them first at Target, but I bought those at Kroger. So they're both
Oh, they're at Target and Kroger. I always assumed she got them at Target. So, okay. Looks like you guys are doing well here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload the handout for today. Okay. It's going to take me a minute, and I usually like to narrate what I'm doing, so please excuse. Let's see. Oops. Get rid of some things. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Okay. No questions so far. They're quiet, Justin. Justin, what would you like me to tell nice people about you here?
Well, I'm a graduate assistant for the UK Health and Wellness Programs. Why I'm so beloved, apparently. That's good. That was good to hear. I'm a little bit of a non-traditional student. I was a personal trainer for 6 years before coming back to UK for a master's in biomechanics.
Ah, so what drove you to come back to UK for biomechanics?
I worked with a lot of people with contraindications. So that means I got lots of bad knees, lots of bad backs, I worked with like people with multiple sclerosis and stroke survivors and things like that. And it's getting into medical fitness. I worked at a medical fitness facility, and I was really interested in how the human body functions as a machine.
Oh, neat.
And so I was really interested in force couplings and why certain injuries might happen when you're placed under these loads, and also just because I'm a huge nerd.
Yay, we like nerds. And you're able to work with such a diverse population here, which is why I think your talents translate really well to UK Health and Wellness, but definitely with Eat Well, because you can tell people maybe who exercise may not be something that they've engaged in on a regular basis before. You can kind of break it down into simple steps that everyone can do in a way that makes sense to them. And that's really what you're going to be talking about today, right?
Yeah, hopefully that's what today's topic is about.
All right. Well, I am going to exit stage left here. I'm going to let Justin take over. So we're going to switch seats. It's going to be awkward. Please stay tuned. And you can bring the mic closer, make sure they can hear you, all of that.
All right. I'll bring up the chat.
Yeah. Oh, yes. The chat went away. So if you hover up here, yep, and then click on more, and then chat, and then there we go.
Oh, cool. All right. Can they see the screen?
Yeah, they should make sure they can see everything.
Hey guys, first of all, can you see me? Hello. And can you see our presentation screen that we have pulled up here? For those of you who are new, don't worry, I'm also new at this, so I'm going to be figuring things out with you. Awesome, cool.
Yay.
That is great to hear. All right, pull this over here. Fantastic. So, what we're going to be talking about today, so the entire time I was a personal trainer and working in a gym, and what I'm doing currently is I kind of split my time between Eat Well and Move Well. So I'm representing Move Well, which is our the fitness side of the UK Health and Wellness program. A big hurdle that a lot of people seem to have when they're just trying to get into a fitness program is that there's so much information out there that it's really hard to nail down where you should start. It's like pulling up your Netflix queue and there's 5,000 things to watch, so you never pick one. I think that's a really similar thing to what a lot of people do with fitness. So today I'm going to be hopefully talking about what are the basic components of what one workout would consist of. So if you were going to go to the gym today and you wanted to have what would be a trainer approved good workout, what would the components of that look like, and what should you look for? And this can apply to gym workouts. So if you go to a gym workout, but this could also apply to home workouts. So even if you just have some basic equipment at home, these principles will apply. And I really like this because you can kind of make this template work even if you have special considerations. For example, if I scroll up here a little bit, and you see all these movement categories that you can hopefully sort of kind of see. Push, pull, pillar, squat, and hinge. I'll explain what those mean here in a little bit. But I've applied this template of like these 5 categories of exercises. I've applied it to 75-year-olds. I've applied it to 12-year-olds. I've applied it to people with multiple sclerosis. I've applied it to people who are trying to lose weight. I've applied it to people who are trying to enter powerlifting competitions. So this can be tailored really specifically based on what your individual needs are. So that's why I kind of like approaching creating a workout this way. So the specifics aren't super duper important. You're not going to make or break your fitness program by choosing the bike over the treadmill. Like things like that probably aren't going to make a ton difference as long as you have the big basic components there. So I think that's a good time to actually start talking about what those big basic components are. So this is actually the first page of our thing here. So in my mind, a proper workout will have 3 distinct components. It's going to have a warm-up, it's going to have a section where you lift heavy things, and it's going to have some cardio. If you have all 3 of those components in a workout program, I think you're doing really, really well. And of course, there's other methods of working out. For example, yoga, you're not doing a ton of strength training, but all that is fine. But this is what I would consider a really basic structure for a workout. So let's kind of go over these one by one. And you can see down here at the end, I would love not to just talk at you for 40 minutes here. So be thinking of some questions you would like to for me to answer towards the end, and feel free to also, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to interject so I'm not just talking at you for another 40 minutes. So be thinking of that while I start talking about what's going on up here. So the first component of a good workout should always consist of a warm-up, and there's a very good reason for that. So for injury prevention and for even like making the workout go smoothly, raising your body temperature is going to do a lot of good things. So we call it a warm-up for a literal good reason. Having a warmer body temperature is going to help a lot of your synovial fluid. That's kind of like the WD-40 of your joints. It's going to help that become a little less viscous. It's going to help that kind of coat your joints a little bit better. It's going to make them a little less grindy, a little less gritty if that's a problem that you have. Warming up a muscle has also been proven to kind of increase its mobility, so it's going to increase its range of motion. And all this is just strictly temperature based. And so that's one component of a warm-up. And you can achieve that component, the actual warming up of the warm-up, by just about anything. Any activity that's going to get your heart rate up and get your temperature up would fall under that. Some really easy examples would just be walking on the treadmill at a fairly easy pace for 5 or 10 minutes, or getting on a bike, or getting on an elliptical. Or you can even do some of the really fancy warm-ups you can find on Google. Anything that's going to get your temperature up is going to be a good thing. So temperature up, that's one thing. A second thing, you're probably going to want to stretch what's normally tight and stabilize what's normally unstable. And this is where we get into some specifics. A good warm-up, if you had a trainer design one for you, is going to be tailored to your individual needs, but there's some general tips that we can have here. So for example, a lot of us sit down for most of the day as part of our job. Even as a fitness person, I'm still sitting in class, and I'm still sitting at the desk at MoveWell for a large portion of the day. And so we tend, and again, this is just general trends, you might not follow this, but we tend to sit a little bit like this. You can see, kind of hunched over, shoulders forward, head forward. So a lot of us are going to get tight through the front part of our chest. So any kind of stretch where you can open up and rotate that arm back and get all these muscles kind of loosened up is probably going to be a good thing. We also tend to let our hips fall asleep. Again, so in my chair right now, my hips are turned completely off. So if you were to take, they've done studies on what are the muscle activity levels in your legs and your hips when you're sitting down, and they're basically zero. So getting them woken up, getting your glutes woken up, getting your hips a little bit more mobile during your warm-up is probably going to be beneficial to most people. So just those two right there are probably going to apply to the vast majority of people who are getting into fitness. So that's open up your chest, open up the front part of your upper body, and loosen and wake up your hips and the lower part of your body. How do you do that? There's going to be I think if you Google hip stretches or chest stretches or dynamic warm-up, you're going to mostly find pretty good information. I know telling you to Google something is probably a shot in the dark, but in my experience, most of the stuff is passable. You can use your own judgment on that. The good news is, as long as you're warm and you feel like you're stretched out and you're ready to go, it's probably working good for you. And when in doubt, if you're scared to do any hip stretches or scared to do shoulder stretches because you have an issue, or you're scared you're going to do them wrong, one, you can always ask somebody. So at MoveWell, there's always a personal trainer on staff that is begging to answer any questions that you have. And if you're even in doubt than that, even more in doubt than that, just do a light, easy set of the exercises that you're going to do in your strength training portion of the workout. So if you're going to do the chest press as part of your actual strength training workout, just do a light, easy set of that, taking it through a big range of motion. If you're going to do squats as part of your workout, do a nice, easy set of squats done to the full range of motion. And that's going to make sure you're specifically warmed up for that exercise for the day. So when in doubt, just do your strength training routine at a low level with the specific purpose of getting your joints warmed up and getting those muscles ready to get to that range of motion. Okay? Any questions so far about the warm-up? No? Cool. Oh, all right. So moving on a little bit, and this is my favorite part to talk about. So I love lifting heavy things. I was a competitive power lifter for a few years, and it's really what I like getting people to do is lift very heavy things over and over and make a lot of noise and have a lot of fun doing it. So we're going to talk about strength training here. So this is where we get to this section, the fun section of our little handout here. So in my mind, if you wanted, so despite being a fitness person, pretty lazy. I don't want to do 20 exercises in a workout. I have video games to play when I go back home and TV to watch. So I want to get my workout done pretty efficiently. So what I like to do is make sure that pick the fewest amount of exercises with the biggest overall like return on my investment. And so that's what you see here. So we see 5 categories, not 5 exercises, but 5 categories of exercises to pull from here. So we have push, pull, pillar, squat, and hinge. Hinge is probably the one that's going to be look the most weird to you, but I'll explain that as we go along. So if you pick an exercise from all 5 of these categories, you're going to have most, if not all, of your major muscle groups covered in one workout. So 5 exercises, and we've covered your entire body. So that's pretty efficient to me. That's what I'd like to. That's how I would structure a workout if I was telling someone to do it. Like I said, I've used this template for a wide variety of people. So hopefully, there's no big issues that would prevent you from adopting this template for yourself. So, what are these movements? It's another thing that I get a lot of when people are first coming to the gym is what exercises am I supposed to do? What machines am I supposed to use? What's a good exercise? Well, let's answer that today. So our first category here is push. So what is a push exercise? A push exercise is anything with your upper body where you're pushing something away from you, either straight out in front of you or over your head or any angle in between. Pushing exercises usually have either push or press in the name. So this will be something like a push-up or a bench press or a dumbbell press or an incline barbell press or a machine press. So they're probably going to have presses in the name. And these exercises, even though there's a ton of different variation and a ton of different names for a lot of these exercises, they're all going to work basically the same muscle groups. They're going to work your chest muscles, so your pectorals. You're going to work the front of your shoulder, and they're going to work the back of your arm, your tricep. So no matter what kind of variation you choose of a push, it's probably going to work those 3 muscle groups pretty efficiently. So pick a push exercise and you're going to get the front of your upper body as well as the back of your arm. So the counterpoint to that is the pull exercise, which I hope you guys can see. Yeah, is the pull exercise right here. So a pull exercise is just going to be the push in reverse. So instead of pushing something away from you, you're going to grab onto something and pull it towards you or pull yourself toward it. So the good news there is that it's going to, if you have good form on one, it's going to look a lot like good form for the other, just done in reverse. So what does a pull exercise work? Well, it works the opposite muscles of a push exercise. So a pull exercise is going to work your back muscles. So the muscles between your shoulder blades, your rhomboids, and your traps through here. It's going to work your lats, which is a muscle kind of on the back and side of you. And it's going to work your biceps, the front of your arm. So with 2 exercises, we've gotten basically every muscle in your upper body. So a pull exercise is probably going to be anything with a row in the name or pull down in the name. So a dumbbell row, a machine row, a cable row, a TRX row, lots of different, a resistance band row, lots of different pieces of equipment, some fancier than others that you can choose from, but the motion is going to be the same and the form is going to be the same for basically all of them. And this also applies to things like pull downs, so a lat pull down or a pull up or a chin up when you're pulling yourself up to, over a bar. Those things are going to look really, no matter what piece of equipment you use, the form is going to look really, really similar. So, things over. The next one here is the pillar. A pillar is just a name I made up for this. You'll find push, pull, squat, hinge across the internet a lot, but I haven't seen pillar yet. And I love alliteration. We got push, pull, pillar. So I'm trademarking pillar in the unlikely event that someone else hasn't already done it. So what does pillar mean? Well, if you've spent any time researching exercise at all, or you've heard anybody talking about exercise, especially on talk shows and on TV and stuff like that, you've probably heard the term core muscles. They seem to be the answer to every exercise problem you could ever have. If you have back problems, strengthen your core. If you want to improve your golf swing, strengthen your core. If you want to be good at sports, strengthen your core. If you want to lower the mortgage rate on your house, strengthen your core. So it is very, very important. Sometimes it's a little bit overplayed, but core muscles are very important. So what do I mean when I say core muscles? I don't mean your six pack. I don't mean just the 6 bumps on the very front of your stomach. Your core, you can essentially think of as everything between your shoulder and your hip. Anything that has an attachment to or around the spine and can influence your trunk stability. So yeah, that's going to include your six-pack muscle, your rectus abdominis. It's also going to include your obliques. I know I'm pointing to them even though you can't see. It's all so going to include your obliques, the muscles on your sides. It's going to include the muscles on your back. It's also going to include your hip muscles because your hips are attached to your pelvis, which are attached to your spine. It might even include muscles like the lats that I talked about in the pull. Anything that attaches to the spine can be a core muscle. They can help stabilize your trunk. And so why is that important? So what do I mean by pillar? Well, when you think of ab exercises, you might think of things like crunches and sit-ups. And while there's certainly nothing wrong with crunches or sit-ups, I'm a little bit biased here because most of the people I worked with the average age was 55 and I had a lot of back problems. Usually people with back problems and people who are at risk of getting back problems, which is a lot of people, can do with less mobility of the spine. So less moving it around, especially less moving it under load. So while there's nothing wrong with sit-ups and crunches per se, for safety and for performance, even if you have an athletic goal in mind, there's a better way to approach core training, in my opinion. And that's with, instead of making the ab muscles move you in a direction, making them hold you still while something else tries to move you. So that's what I mean by pillar. You're bracing hard and you're preventing motion from occurring. So that would be things like planks, where you're on your elbows or on your hands, or you're on a Bosu ball, like we have in our example here. I just pulled these straight from workoutlabs.com as just examples. Where gravity is trying to pull her hips and lower back downwards. So she's resisting the pull of gravity to pull and collapse her lower back, and she's using it by using these muscles on the front of her abdomen right here to hold herself back up and to resist that outside force of gravity. We also have things like, if you've ever carried something really heavy in one hand, you could probably tell the opposite side, the core muscles on your opposite side, both the front side and back on that side, are working very hard to keep you upright. So holding a heavy weight in one hand and walking with it, that's called a suitcase carry. That will be a form of core training. That would be a pillar exercise. So the key here is to brace. And the way I can explain what bracing means. So this is the part where you can play along at home, and you can make it as a ridiculous face as you want. No one is going to see it. I'm not going to see it, so I can't judge you. So if you want to know what bracing is supposed to feel like, what does it mean to brace your core, which you're going to see a lot of in a lot of these exercises, especially the two we're about to go over. So sit up as straight as you're able to in your chair, or even stand up if you like. Make sure you close your mouth and nose, and just exhale against that closed mouth and nose. So I looked silly for you, so you don't have to feel self-conscious. What you hopefully should have felt was an increased pressure built up in your abdominal and trunk region. You felt all those muscles holding still and making you stay in place. So if you try that exercise, and try to move your spine around, you'll find it's a lot harder to move your spine and to be moved than it would be if you were to exhale out all your air and try to move that way. That's because that's increasing the pressure around your spine and keeping it more stable. So, and that's goes a long way into keeping your lower back safe, keeping it strong and stable and not moving and unbending. And it's also going to go a lot through performance, because if you think about it, a golf swing, the power has to go from your feet into your hands and what does it have to pass through before it all that power from your feet gets to your hands. It has to pass through your core. If your core is limp and floppy like a wet noodle, that power transfer is going to be lost in large part. So that's pillar. Okay. All right. The next one we're going to talk about is the squat. So everybody I feel really comfortable sending just about anyone out in the world to do these 3 exercises, the push, the pull, and the pillar. I think those are relatively safe exercises to let you out in the world to do. Maybe some less safe exercises, at least if you do them incorrectly, are going to be these 2 we're about to talk about. So I might spend a little bit more time talking about them. So, but that doesn't mean they're not important. And the only reason I said that they're less safe is because, show of hands that I will not be able to see, who here has knee problems, or lower back problems, or hip problems, or foot problems? I would guess that they're a lot more common than things like shoulder problems, even though shoulder problems can be quite common. So sometimes lower body exercises can be a little bit intimidating, but hopefully I can take the stigma off that a little bit. All of the problems, yeah. Some people are really lucky and they get to experience all of them. Now you have a very interesting workout planned ahead of you. So good for you. Your workout's going to be much more interesting than someone else's maybe. But that doesn't mean we can't make all of these work for you if you do have some of these problems. So if you have any questions on how to modify some exercises, keep that in mind, and hopefully I can help answer them at the end. Anyway, so what is this squat? So what is a squat supposed to do? A squat is a knee-dominant lower body exercise. So what that means is, as you can see, the knees are going to bend a lot. Now she's going, we would call this a full squat. So this is a goblet squat because she's holding the weight kind of like a goblet. I don't know why they name things the way they do, but you can see she's going down pretty low. And if your knees can handle that, if they don't hurt, that's great. This is not going to be bad for your knees if your knees aren't already bad. So a nice full range of motion is going to keep those joints nice and healthy as long as they're already healthy. But you certainly don't have to go down this low. When in doubt, just don't go any lower than your knees can handle. So what does a squat work? A squat is going to work the front of your legs, rather the front of your thighs, your quadriceps. It's going to work your glutes, which are your rear end muscles. And it's also going to work your lower back a little bit because that lower back is becoming a pillar. You want to have that same pillar when you're doing the squats. So we're sneaking in another ab exercise there. So you want to have that nice pillar while you're going down into a squat. That lower back's not going to bend. And what exercises would fall under the category of squat? Well, I just said she's doing a goblet squat. She's holding a weight in front of her and squatting down like that. That's a really easy place to start. A simple sit to stand, which is literally sitting down on a bench and standing back up with or without weight. That would be a type of squat, and it would work the same muscles. A lunge, even though it's it's not called a squat, it's still in the squat category because it's a knee-dominant exercise and it's going to work the same muscles. A leg press, so a machine leg press is going to work. It's going to be a squat type exercise because it's working the same muscles. It's still a knee-dominant exercise. Some quick tips on a squat to make them a little bit safer. Make sure any kind of squat you do, no matter if your feet are really close together or if you're doing on one leg or if your feet are wide apart, make sure your knees are tracking over your toes. What I mean by that is a lot of people when they squat, their knees will kind of cave inwards as they squat, and that puts a lot more stress on the ligaments of your knee, especially the ACL and the MCL. So you've heard ACL problems, you hear them just about every day if you watch Sports Center, and you probably, if you haven't had them yourself, you probably know someone who has ligament issues or meniscus issues in their knees, and a lot of that is because of uneven loading, and that might be caused by that knee coming in. That's a really common cause of knee problems. So just make sure your knees are out, tracking in line with your toes, preferably in line with your ring toe, your fourth toe. Ring toe, yeah.
Little piggy had none.
Yeah, whatever toe
piggy
you.
had none.
Yeah, whatever toe you normally wear your rings on. That's what you want your knees tracking over. So that's it for squat, and the last one, probably the most complicated, in terms of trying to teach. So this is the one that I would have to spend the most time teaching to my clients that I had, but it's also going to be one of the most beneficial exercises you can do. Is called a hinge. And what's the difference between a squat? Move this out of the way. What's the difference between a squat and a hinge? So a squat is knee dominant. You can see the knees are bending quite a bit, and a hinge is hip dominant. So the hips are bending quite a bit, but the knees don't bend very much. So what does that do to the exercise? Well, it makes the exercise a lot more hip dominant, and instead of working the front of your legs significantly, now it's going to work the back of your legs, your hamstrings. It's going to work your hamstrings a lot more, and it's going to put even more emphasis on your glutes than does a squat. And that's a very good thing. Having very strong hamstrings is directly correlated with healthier knees. It's also indirectly, but somewhat correlated with a healthier lower back. Any kind of strengthening you can do for your hamstrings and your hip muscles are going to stabilize that pelvis more, and it's going to help stabilize your lower back more. But even beyond just the muscles, one of the best things you can learn to do to save yourself from some of those back problems is the pretentious word for it is lumbopelvic disassociation. What that basically means is, can you tell the difference between moving from your spine and moving from your hips? So unfortunately, it would be hard for me to kind of show you what that means. But if you wanted to try this out for yourself, you could stand up, place one hand on the small of your lower back and one hand on the front of your belly. And as you're standing, move through your spine and kind of feel how you can actually feel that with your hands. You can feel your spine moving. And then after you do it the wrong way, that would be moving from your spine, try to fold forward at your hips without letting your spine move. You can push your hips backwards and let yourself fold forwards over with your hips. And if you do that correctly, if you do that without moving your spine, you should feel a nice big stretch in your hamstrings at the bottom, and that's how you know that that's your end range of motion for this exercise. So just knowing this skill is going to go a long way towards making sure that even when you pick something up in real life, not just in the gyms, because gym exercises should have a tangible benefit to your real life. Just knowing how to move from your hips as opposed to your lower back is going to do you a world of good, both in the gym and outside of it. So what kind of exercises would fall under the hinge category? So now these exercises, I would really recommend having a trainer or having someone who really knows their stuff. Check your form first if you're unsure at all. There are plenty of good tutorials on YouTube. If you just Google hinge tutorial, you'll find a lot of good stuff. Dr. John Rusin is a really good resource. Tony Gentilcore is a great resource. Molly Galbraith, who's a Kentucky girl who's really strong, Girls Gone Strong founder. She has great resources. They can help teach you the hinge in a more complete setting. But some exercises would include deadlifts. So just literally picking something up off the floor. The exercise that our drawn model, which once again I stole from workoutlabs.com, the exercise she is demonstrating is a Romanian deadlift, which is basically just you hold the bar at the front and you let it slide down your legs in the same way that's if you did our little example earlier with your hand on your lower back and trying to fold forward from your hips. It's that exact same motion, but now you have a barbell sliding down your legs. And you can see her spine is staying nice and straight. She has that pillar going from hip to shoulder. So her core muscles are working very hard or very effectively to hold her spine still. And then she's going to come back up by pushing through the floor and using those posterior chain muscles. So deadlifts, kettlebell swings, which are my personal favorite exercise. Things like glute bridges. So if you've ever been in physical therapy for lower back or knee exercise, you might have done glute bridges, which has you laying on your back and pushing your hips up. So exercises like that are an example of a hinge. So any questions over any of that? It's going to be really tough to, especially in the time we have, to go over specific form for all of those. But if you do have a specific form question or a question on any of our 5 kind of workout, 5 exercise categories, let me know. Where does climbing stairs fit into the categories? Thanks, Linda. That would probably be a squat. So if you think, what is climbing up a stair? It is bending your knee and your hip kind of equally. If you can kind of look, imagine this leg is straight, and imagine just this leg is bent. Well, that would look like she's taking 3 or 4 stairs at a time. So climbing stairs would be a squat type category. To answer your question? Hope so. All right. And if you, yeah, cool. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to interject. We're going to try to move on so we can kind of finish our presentation on time here. So cardio's our last section. So we've warmed up. We've got the blood flowing. We've got your muscles and joints ready to lift some heavy things. We've lifted those heavy things, hopefully with one exercise from each category. And we've worked every muscle in your body all in one workouts. Oh, yeah. One set of each one, as long as it's heavy enough, would work. Yeah, let me talk a little bit more about strength training. Sorry about that. So now how much to do of it? Anything around 10 reps is going to be fine. What I mean by that is pick an exercise and a weight that is challenging enough for any of these exercises to where you can really tell that you're working around 10 reps. Not to the point of failure, not to the point where you can't do one more rep, but something you feel like you're really challenging yourself with this weight at around the 10 mark. And I say around the 10 mark because it might be 6 reps that you feel challenged on, and that's fine as long as your form is good. It might be 15 reps where you're challenged. We start to feel that challenge, and that's also fine. There's some fine tuning there depending on what goals you have, depending on whether you should lift heavier or lighter. But in general, as long as you're challenging yourself for health purposes, you're doing good. And 2 to 4 sets is ideal. So that would be, of our 5 categories, 2 to 4 sets would be between 10 and 20 sets of an exercise. So if you have an hour and a half to work out and you're really serious about it, 4 sets would be fantastic. If you're really, really crunched for time, just 1 set of each exercise, so a total of 5 sets, might take 10, maybe 15 minutes. As long as that set was challenging, is good enough to hold on to the muscle mass that you have and to hold on to the strength that you have. So even just 1 set's way better than nothing. Anything is way better than nothing. So if you have any more questions on how long you should take or how heavy a weight you should use, you can, feel free to jump in and ask them, and hopefully I'll see it in the chat, okay? All right, last thing we'll talk about for real this time, cardio. So cardio is probably the easiest one to talk about because anything can be cardio. Anything can be cardio. As long as it gets your heart rate up and keeps it there for a little while, anything can be cardio. So the traditional forms of cardio would be things like the stair climber. So climbing stairs would be cardio, getting on a treadmill, and either walking or running, the elliptical, any of the traditional cardio machines in the gym are going to be really easy choices to do some cardio, but it can also be walking outside or walking the dog or playing a game of pickup squash or whatever kind of activities you like. All those would count as cardio too. Now, what does cardio versus just general physical activity, what's the differentiation between them? Well, that can get really, really blurry. There's a lot of overlap, but in general, just like you wouldn't try to curl a bottle of water to strengthen your biceps, because it's probably too light to actually make your body adapt to the change, you want to get your heart rate up high enough and keep it there long enough to enact some sort of change in your actual heart musculature. So what the goal of cardio, the goal of strength training, I didn't say, but hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory, is to make your muscles stronger. The goal of cardio is to make your heart bigger and stronger. So we want to make sure your heart can fill up with a lot of blood and pump a lot of blood out per beat, and that takes a big, strong, compliant heart. So how do you get a big, strong, compliant heart? You make it work hard. You make it go up to that 120, 30, 140 beats per minute and keep it there for a while. It doesn't have to get that high depending on how old you are, but you want to get your heart rate up significantly higher than what it normally is and keep it there for a while. And that's why just about anything can work. It also unfortunately means that while getting your steps in is fantastic and you should absolutely do them, any sort of physical activity is going to be great. If you actually want to enact some cardiovascular changes, if you want to make your heart adapt to that, you got to walk at a pace that's probably just a little bit beyond comfortable. Got to work kind of hard to make that heart rate get up to the point where it's actually going to enact some changes. So I know that's a little bit vague, and my answer explaining it's going to be maybe even slightly less vague. I like this analogy right here. So you want something that feels good on your joints. If your knees are hating running, please stop running. If your shins are killing you on your walk, consider maybe something else for a little bit. And you can pick something different every single time. But how hard should you work? Probably at a pace that would let you answer a question but not have a conversation. I think that's a good general rule for a moderate exercise prescription for cardio. So that means that you can say, yeah, I'm on the treadmill right now. But you couldn't say, yes, I'm on the treadmill right now, and let me tell you about the rest of my day or in the morning. So you want to be able to answer a question without, breaking it up into separate sentences or separate, breaths. But you shouldn't be able to just have a normal conversation. So that's a decent rule of thumb when you're trying to determine how hard you should be working during your cardio. And anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes, you can certainly go longer. If all you have is 5 minutes, you can certainly, that would still, again, way better than nothing. In general, the harder you work, the less time you have to go. So, all right. I left our general tips section blank because in class I kind of wrote some in, so I apologize that you're getting the incomplete version here. But I think that's all that I had planned to lecture you guys about. So if anybody has any questions at this time, I'd love to answer them. Please. Okay, so do you happen to know the best online, best prices or in-store places to purchase exercise equipment? With exercise equipment, sometimes getting the cheap stuff, the whole purpose of exercise equipment is to put it through the ringers, is to stress it, is to almost try to break it with some cases, like resistance bands and straps and things like that. So I would say spend a little bit of extra money on some good stuff. So in-store places, Dick's Sporting Goods is an okay site. They can be a tiny bit overpriced sometimes, but they generally have, the quality there is pretty okay. Rogue Fitness, I'm going to write that in the chat here. So roguefitness.com. Hopefully that's spelled correctly. Rogue Fitness has a lot of good stuff at reasonable prices. They're the supplier of the CrossFit Games. I have kettlebells from Rogue Fitness that I really, really like. They're really well made, and they're on the cheap side of things. Amazon, really be careful on Amazon. Definitely look at reviews before you buy anything off of Amazon, because you can find some pretty junk stuff. I'm sure any of us who have ordered off of Amazon can attest to that. That quality control is not ubiquitous over at Amazon. That doesn't mean you can't find good things, but definitely read the reviews, go to the site, do a little bit more in-depth research before you get something online like that. And don't discount Craigslist and eBay. Just make sure you know what you're getting. So, for example, I got a rack, so something to put a barbell in to do squats and bench presses. I got a rack off Craigslist for $200. And it ended up being a very, very quality rack. I've had it for 4 years now, and it hasn't broken down at all. I got it from a gym that was getting rid of it in Georgetown. So there's lots of places. I encourage you to do the extra research. Don't get the cheap stuff unless you plan for it to break when it comes to your fitness supplies. Oh, cool. I hope that answered your question. You're welcome. Any other questions? What is my opinion of yoga? I like yoga. You're not going to hear too many negative opinions from me over any sort of exercise program unless it's just inherently dangerous. But yeah, I like yoga a lot. The only disclaimers for yoga that I would put forth is know what yoga is supposed to do. So most yoga classes that I've been to, which were beginner classes because I'm very clumsy, were more geared towards flexibility and relaxation, which is fantastic. That's great. And a lot of them had some good core exercises and great control exercises. So their yoga can be very, very good for core and joint control. Which are very, very valuable. And if you like yoga, continue to do it. Absolutely. I would just make sure that you are aware that it's probably not going to be, most forms of yoga are probably not going to be the best forms of cardio, although there are certainly exceptions. I know I took a power yoga class that almost destroyed me a couple years back. But just make sure you know what you're getting out of yoga, and make sure, because most good yoga teachers won't claim that it's going to give you really big muscles. Most yoga teachers won't claim that it should be the only portion of your exercise regimen. Hot yoga, is it dangerous? If you don't have any kind of pre-existing condition, any pre-existing heart condition that dehydration would contribute to, probably not. If you're healthy and well hydrated, I would say hot yoga, the most dangerous thing about it is the smell. I have taken hot yoga before, and it's an interesting smell in that place. I don't really believe in the more sweat, the better. By that I mean, I don't think sweating a lot is going to do a lot for you, because all sweating is your body's way of trying to get rid of excess heat. So more sweating doesn't mean you're having a better workout. It just means your body is kind of overheating. Not overheating, but it's trying to get rid of excess heat. So I think if you like hot yoga, it's fine as long as you are well hydrated and you don't have any kind of pre-existing heart condition. But if you like it, absolutely keep doing it. You're going to be a lot more limber in hot yoga, but don't feel like it's a ton better than just normal temperature controlled yoga. Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? So a question someone asked me in class, yeah, awesome. See ya. Glad you enjoyed them. Hope you got something out of them. One last question that was asked me in class, in-person class yesterday was, do you have to do all these things at once? No, absolutely not. As long as, so you can absolutely set up your workout where you do your strength training on, let's say Monday, for example, and then you do your cardio on Tuesday. You could absolutely set up a workout program like that. So this is just what I would consider a complete workout with all your bases covered. I would just say that if you're going to split up your strength training and cardio, make sure you do a warm-up before each of them. But you could certainly split these up. You don't have to do everything all at once. So one of the questions I remember from yesterday. Okay. If there are no more questions, okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I hope you guys got something out of it. I'm going to give the camera back to Nessa. All right.
All right. Thanks, you guys, for being with us today. And I think Justin did a great job on explaining just sort of the basic foundations of exercise. It's really neat to see how it can be broken down into those 5 categories of activity. And I think it's something that we can all stand to remember. So please, if you have any questions about today or anything else, shoot us an email and we'll make sure that those questions get answered. Stuart, you're ready to dust off your weight bench? That's awesome. Yes. You heard Justin there. Yeah, that's excellent. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and weekend, and we'll see you next week. Just want to let you know that we do have a new class schedule for taking us to the end of the year. It's crazy that we have to think about that right now, but we do have a new class schedule, and it is on the website. So go on and check that out if you haven't already, and we will see you next time. All right, thanks you guys for sticking around. See you soon.